Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Purple Noon, a podcast. I am Stephanie Conti, and I am here with Defoe. I'm trying to read the username right now that
Defoe
Savanna has put.
episode.
Defoe episode?
It's a Defoe episode.
It's a Defoe episode. Like
It
in
is.
life? Or was there a particular TV show with Defoe in it?
No, our episode has Defoe in it.
It
Because
does.
yes.
It does. It does. I was like, wait a minute, we're not talking about Spider-Man, but then I remembered. Okay. So it is a Defoe episode. As you know, we are big. Well, I like Defoe. Savanna, by the way, here is Savanna Lanausse. Savanna is a very big, very, very big Defoe fan.
He's a crush. What can I say?
I mean, hey, I get it. We got Defoe. I formerly had Depardo, but I have since stripped that right from me. Brando, Defoe, and Brando. That's who it is on here. Who our crushes are. But what was the movie that like caught your attention with Defoe? Was it Green Goblin?
I think maybe, but what really set it off, truthfully, was the Florida Project.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Like, I think that's what kind of I always thought he was handsome, sure, but the fascination, I want to say, came from the Florida Project.
Wow, so you went for a more, I don't want to say old, a more seasoned Defoe is what really caught your attention.
I think he looked fantastic in Platoon. I think he was in, if I remember.
Yes, when he was a youngster.
Gorgeous. And I think he's just aged just very nice and naturally. I appreciate it.
He looked, I will say, because when we saw Defoe in other movies from, the Florida Project time, it was, I want to say, I think it was because we had just watched, what was the movie? The Lighthouse. And Defoe was in some wacky projects here and there. And then it was, so weird to see him just so kind of normal in the Florida Project,
I appreciate him. I don't think he gets enough love.
I understand, and I respect your crush on Defoe. I hope you know.
Thanks.
But so we have two movies, one featuring Defoe, one not featuring Defoe, sadly. But the two movies that we're going to be talking about today are two newer movies that are probably still available. Even by the time this is up, that they are probably still available playing in your area. The first movie that we're going to be talking about today is Red Rocket. So a little bit about Red Rocket. It is about Mikey Saber is a washed-up porn star who returns to his small Texas home. Not that anyone really wants him back. It is written and directed by Sean Baker, who also did The Florida Project, which we were mentioning just before. And it stars Simon Rex as Mikey, Brie Elrod, and Susanna Sun. Brie Elrod plays Lexi, and Susanna Sun plays Strawberry, and they are definitely the three main characters within this story. So Savanna, we both saw Red Rocket together in the theater, so I kind of already know how you think about this movie. But in terms of a spoiler-free little summary of how you feel about the movie, what are your thoughts on Red Rocket?
So without spoils, initially when the movie was done, I was like, I can never watch that again. It was really funny because your boyfriend was there and we walked out of that and we looked at each other and I don't know if he said it or I said it, but one of us went like, we knew the plot of this movie. What were we expecting?
That was you.
Yes,
you
that's
said
right.
And then Zach was like, I didn't quite like that.
No, okay. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And when you first see it, it is a lot. For me, it was a lot. And there was one particular thing, we'll get into it later, I just wasn't a fan of, and I'm not a fan of, I talked about it a lot in this podcast, I'm not a fan of in general. But as further reflection, I realized that this is probably the best movie this year in terms of character construction.
Mm-hmm.
We get one of the most evil characters of the year. Narcissistic, horrific person.
And realistic.
And
just
very
overall realistic too.
Sean Baker has this element of realism in his filmmaking that is very unmatched. You feel like you are in this town, in this person's life. So There are things I don't like about it, but I do have to give credit where credit is due. This was a very great. I mean, like Sean Baker films plot wise, you could say like, oh, it doesn't really go anywhere, but we are looking at like the most of his films are the downfall of his characters, and I think this one he did the best. So he is unmatched, and I think for that he deserves a lot of credit because this movie really, really very shocking, but very good.
Yeah. So would you say you recommend it, but with like a grain of salt, if that makes any sense? Like you recommend it, but with caution.
With a lot of caution because this movie is not going to be for everybody at
Yes.
all. Like I think if I knew a little bit more about it, truthfully, I would have been hesitant to see it. I'm glad I saw it because I think it's worth the watch.
Hmm.
But I think if you're gonna go watch this movie, you need to know like, hey, this is what you're gonna have to expect.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I was the only one who came out of the theater and I was like, I really like that. And it wasn't because I liked
No,
the
no, yeah.
controversial parts of it. It's because I understood why they were used and we'll discuss more about it. Understood why it was used and I also thought that it really gave power to the movie in terms of and look, and I know everyone is on TikTok right now kind of talking about morality and stuff like that. I think everyone has the right to whatever
Mhm.
they want to believe in, what a movie should be, what a movie shouldn't be, and things like that. And I thought that, this movie used its really gross parts of it for good and really well. Like it made sense. It really gave power to the story, or provided a little bit of education. Like I genuinely think, even though it is uncomfortable, it's not uncomfortable with and it's not like I can't stand movies that are uncomfortable when you're just like, why was this included? I don't like that. I feel like it's just at that point either just a cheap shot at being, you know, kind of like different or it's just weird. So I really like the way it was used in this movie. I thought it was used correctly, air quote, that's just my opinion. But overall, aside from the controversy, I loved the dialogue.
Mhm.
I loved the scenery, the way that this movie looked. And of course, the acting and directing. I really love, like, I genuinely think, like, this is probably my favorite movie of 2021, just because I really think Sean Baker just every mark that I wanted from this movie, I thought it was like it hit the nail right on the head from
Okay.
what I wanted. I was given definitely a lot more than I expected in terms of some plots and everything like that, but it definitely was a great film. So let's dissect it a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, do you want to talk about do you want to save the controversy till the end,
Um,
or do you want to get it out of the way?
I think we should get it out of the way
Okay.
because
So
I
this
can
is now where we're
also.
going to enter spoilers. Well, I mean, I'm sure like you could tell like just from reading the description of the movie, it involves sex. And sex isn't the issue. It's the fact that there is this kind of subplot element to it where not even subplot, it becomes a main plot point at some point
Yeah,
where
no
Mickey
movie.
is trying to convince this 17-year-old girl to move back with him to LA so that way he can make her a porn star and it's only for his own benefit. He's not really thinking about the girl and it's really gross because and I will say props to Sean Baker for finding a girl who looked mad young but was actually closer to 30 in reality. I genuinely appreciate that because if this girl genuinely was like 17, 18 during the filming of this, I would have been even more uncomfortable watching the
Oh
stuff,
yeah,
because
yeah.
then like I think also it's kind of like it's kind of like the downfall of the movie Manhattan.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like
No,
like it's just really gross. It's just even though it is movie and make believe, directors always have their own intentions, and I
absolutely.
feel like the intention from Sean Baker was to capsulate reality rather than promote or do like inflate his own opinion, if that makes any sense. Like he didn't have a Woody Allen perspective
No,
on
no.
this.
And I think you can tell when there is an element of like when you look at Manhattan, there is an element of creepiness. Even with this movie
Yes.
and how graphic it really is, it is more cautionary on reflection than anything else.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a problem with the character herself being 17, because I think you pointed out to me also in Texas that is like
I
the
believe. Let me
well,
double check.
even if it is or not, I think there is a reason why the director, like, it could be a good
It is
cautionary,
17 in Texas.
right? So it could be a good cautionary tale against grooming, and it does seem like that because Mikey gives all like these warnings that most groomers do get. They make the girl feel special. They develop a relationship. What I had, and I talk about it a lot on the podcast. This is a spoiler, do not like graphic sex scenes, because I
Yes.
do feel like most of the time it's very rare for me to not feel like they're not exploitive to either the women on the film or just in general.
Yeah.
Um, I don't necessarily feel like that with this movie. I don't feel like its intention was exploitation per se,
Yeah.
but for me, I just didn't think it was necessary to show that so many times. I think if we saw it maybe once or even twice, I can understand. Um,
Especially with the nature of the fact that it's like, we know that he's doing this with a 17-year-old character, you know?
yeah, and even if she's not 17, which is fine. Like the like you said, this was a grown woman well into her 20s, so I have no problem.
Hmm.
But remember, when you're watching this movie and in the eyes of the audience, we are looking at a 17-year-old girl for
Yes.
all intents
Yes.
of purpose, for all purposes, really. So for me, I would have highly preferred more if he maybe kept. I'm not saying like, because I understand he was going for that element of shock and surprise and grit, and he definitely got it. But I think if we kept it to like 2 scenes and maybe minimized them a little bit more, he would have gotten the same reaction. I don't think he needed as many to get the same reaction. So that was just my critique of the film.
100%.
I
Yeah.
think it was a little too much. That's all.
For sure. And I can totally, like, I can see that. And to a certain degree, I do agree with that. I'm not
Yeah.
saying keep the sex scenes in,
No,
but
no,
I am
yeah.
saying that I think overall, and it's just also preference too. Like, I can,
Oh, yeah.
I thought that there were definitely like, and it wasn't just graphic scenes with her. There was graphic scenes with the character Lexi and things like that. There were just a lot of graphic scenes in this movie. But of course, it's the nature of the film. It's a movie about a porn star, So I understood. I will say there was one of the more risque graphic scenes that I did, and I don't want to say I liked, but I did understand the purpose of, and I thought that it made it more powerful. And it's when Strawberry, the 17-year-old, is sitting at the edge of the bed and she has her top off. And Mickey's looking at her like he just scored the whole jackpot, And she's like, "Oh, and I can sing." And then she sings and it's beautiful. I think that was a good scene overall, even though, yeah, she could have been in a bra, she could have, had been clothed and stuff like that. I do think that her being nude and singing and stuff and like showing that she has talent kind of made it like sink in deeper, that it's like, oh man, like she really could have gone places
No,
if it wasn't
I
for
think
him.
I agree with you. I think that was one of the scenes that did have purpose, because we were also like, yeah, I wasn't crazy about her being topless. I would have preferred a bra, but the scene also takes place in a very pink bedroom. And
Yeah.
like we kind of understand like this is a kid. Maybe she's
Yeah.
not a little girl, but this is a kid. I'm talking more about like
I just looked all around at my pink bedroom at 23.
no, but you know what I mean. Like it was
Yeah.
like
They made
child.
her home look like a dollhouse, even
Yeah.
in the end, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, they definitely I think set it up really well. And then also in that scene with the fact that she's singing the opening theme, which is Bye Bye Bye. And I really liked how it came about full circle. And I think that's what also makes that scene strong too, as well.
Oh, I really enjoyed the scenes of them in like her house.
Yeah.
I was more I just maybe the stuff in the car could have been, we didn't really need to see the stuff in the car.
Yeah.
But I will say my favorite part of the movie personally was actually the scenes with him and his ex-wife in the house. When he
Yes.
comes back to his ex-wife and he has this great way. Sean Baker has this great way of like finding things out throughout the movie, but they're very small pieces. But I
Mhm.
actually love that because there was a part where we find out like he basically ruined his ex-wife's life.
Yeah.
Throughout the movie, we realize like, oh God, like he did this to somebody else. The what he's trying to do with Strawberry, he did this already.
Yeah, where he took out his own wife to LA and they started doing scenes together. They were making a lot of money. And of course, and it's also a notably known fact that in the porn industry, there's usually a lot of drugs because drugs are
Yeah.
not only used, even sometimes in videos, but the drugs are primarily used in terms of coercion, keeping people on set longer, and things like that. So the fact that his wife ends up getting a heroin habit because of the whole industry essentially is pretty crazy.
And I think it's kind of like when we start fitting the pieces together, it's such a sad story, really.
Oh
But
yeah, and then it's also kind of alluded through the mother that right now neither of them work like an actual job. The what Lexi does is she really just sleeps with men for money. She acts like a prostitute. Like the mother's like, I don't want her going out with the strange men at night. I want her home and everything like that. Meanwhile, it's just kind of it's so crazy to think that this one guy took her there, enabled her, or showed her a world of drugs essentially, and then sent her back home to make her feel like the only thing that she was capable or worthy of doing was sex again.
yeah, we also find out she has like a son that she lost at some point, like in the
Yes.
in foster care system. Um,
Which that is something I want to ask you. Do you think it's Mikey's son?
I don't know because I actually don't. I didn't understand how old he was. I assume he's a child because there's a picture of him at some point. Mikey looks at very briefly. I don't know because it. I know somewhere they hadn't spoken in like 15 to something like that. They hadn't spoken in years.
Yeah.
So I don't know if like I was confused on that, to be honest. I don't know if he wanted us to believe that it was his son or it was a situation where she did get pregnant, maybe during her, her porn career, or maybe while she was like, I didn't understand, or I didn't know if it was used as like, oh, see how much Mikey does not care about this woman, or like see how much he abandoned her and his child. I
Yeah.
wasn't completely sure. What do you think?
I don't know, like, because they showed a brief picture of the kid. Now, here's the thing: it was a scene shot at night. I could not tell if I could not tell if, like, for a split second, I kind of wondered. I was like, it was the kid mixed? Was it, or I couldn't really tell because the scene was so dark and it showed the photo so quickly that I had a hard time telling if it was even, you know, Mikey's kid. I don't think it was because I feel like if it was his kid, then she would have been a lot more angry at him. You know
True.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like she would have at some point said, like, because of you, your kids, in foster care. I felt like that argument would have been thrown out. I think probably like maybe even because the kid looked like a baby. So probably within like that 10-year gap, or maybe even right before they separated, she slept with someone else and got pregnant.
That's what I was thinking. I didn't think it was particularly his.
Yeah.
Um, but they weren't, I will say they weren't exactly clear about it. Like I
Mhm.
was a little confused on like why that was brought up.
I think it's also to show like now, because here we have Mikey staying at um Lexi, who's his wife legally, but they're clearly like not
Oh, I
together.
forgot they were still married. I
They're
forgot about that.
still married. And with his mother-in-law living with them and stuff like that, I think adding the kid to the picture not only made Mikey look more vicious and evil, his like, oh yeah, whatever. But now it also gave Lexi a reason why she actually wanted Mikey to stay, because they had to do like she said that they had to do like I think it was social services meeting or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
See, so and now she had a reason to keep him home. So it's just kind of like I think it was another angle to see how it was not just him trying to use her, but maybe a little bit of her trying to use him as well.
Right.
Which, I mean, I don't
It
blame
doesn't
her.
come up.
Girl's got to do what a girl's got to do to get her kid.
But I mean, at the end of the day, also, he definitely owes her a lot.
Yes.
The least he could do to show up to a meeting, generally,
Mm-hmm.
I love, I think I told you this when we left the theater. I love the places and locations Sean Baker picks for his films.
Oh my God, yeah. I think want to know what it reminded me of? Have you ever seen the movie Red Desert?
No, I haven't.
So Red Desert is this movie starring Monica Vitti. It's an Italian cinema film from, I want to say, the 50s or 60s. And it's by Michelangelo Antonioni. And essentially, Red Desert, the whole backdrop is kind of like this industrialization of Italy backdrop, where you have the smokestacks, the factories, and stuff like that.
Right.
And it's been a while since I've seen Red Desert, but the plot to Red Desert is that the fact that those, let me pull it up and make sure it is the right one. I think there was a theory about the movie where, like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen the movie, but I believe that there was a theory that the reason why everyone in that movie was kind of acting weird, wild, and crazy was because of the exposure to the chemicals. So I liked how he included that too, because even now, even knowing what I know about Red Desert and then watching this movie, it also made me wonder. I'm like, could potentially like this atmosphere be even more so contributing to the environment and the people within the environment?
Right. Yeah.
So I really love that. And I loved how realistic yet also dystopian it kind of brought about, how dysfunctional that world was.
Yeah. The place and the people in it, and I think Florida Project does have the same sort of vibe to it, where you're in this basically like keep in mind, I don't even think the town itself was sad. It was the
I
town.
don't think I don't think the town itself is even real in real life.
No, I'm talking about the setting though. I think it's just
Oh,
this mixture of like the people in it, and then you have this background that is very almost like, what's the word I'm looking for? Isolated.
yes.
So he's a very he's really the only director I've seen that could probably do that. He picks these very unique places or orchestrates these very unique places and puts these very unique characters in them and creates this really visual situation for us. Very immersive.
Yeah, and not only do I love the fact that he's not only picks people where, like, for example, so this, I thought it was a made up town. It's called Texas City. That's why I thought it was made up. But apparently it actually is a real, like, small town in Texas. But essentially, what I really like with Sean Baker and what he does, and you were mentioning before with how he picks his actors and everything like that, but not only picks his actors, like, who really fit the scene well, but also actors who are capable of bringing stuff from their own past into the picture. So, like Simon Rex, who plays Mikey, he does he used to be in like the early 90s, he was a porn star turned actor, essentially. And so I really like that how he brought an actor with actual real life experience and totally being able to understand the lingo, how the industry works, and everything like that, especially for the time as well.
No, and he was very impressive.
Yes.
There, he played
Yes.
a very dynamic character, like very interesting, very unique. I will say, we've seen people play narcissists in the past, but this was very special. This was
Yes.
almost, his character was like delusional without acting delusional. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was just like this very normal, excited guy, and every word out of his mouth would sound absolutely insane, but he had a
Hmm.
way of making you believe it.
Yeah, and I think also too, like, he just did such a great job. And I think he really must have thought of like he probably met someone in that industry who he based, the character Mickey off of, because that character runs deep in terms of how this character's emotions, its motives, and things like that. Like, the character of Mickey runs real deep. And I also want to say I was also really impressed because I knew Sean Baker was going to be able to do well with Simon Rex, but I know Simon Rex from being like no offense to him, at the time, it was just kind of like a smaller kind of, not even smaller. He was really big on Vine, but after Vine ended, there was like really nothing else for him. He was really big on Vine at one point. And so that's how I knew about Simon Rex. He also was in like Scary Movie and things like that before too. But I kind of was introduced to him when he was on Vine. So it was really interesting to see him go from like, Vine comedian from like 10 years ago to now actually like a well-rounded, well-performed actor.
Absolutely. He did an amazing job.
Because he did so much. He brought the drama. He was able to bring, he brought so many different elements of his character out that show that he can easily be put in a lot of different movies from here on out. Like, he was able to bring out, the drama. He was able to play, like, if he needed to play a stoner or a drunkard, he easily could. He knows how to bring the romance, especially when he was flirting with Strawberry, even though it was icky. And also his like the dialogue, the quick dialogue, how fast he was able to say his lines, how fast he was able to like it genuinely felt like just real life conversations between these people, because it
Absolutely.
was like no brainer. And apparently when Simon Rex had auditioned for this, within 3 days he had the entire movie script memorized.
No, he is indeed a very talented guy. Just from what I've never seen him in anything else, and I was extremely impressed. But that's another credit to Sean Baker. He is amazing at picking these very unique people. He doesn't have a lot of famous people in his movies, really. I think William Dafoe really probably was the most famous in the Florida Project. And even
Mhm.
in this movie, there isn't anybody that is well known. But
Yeah.
he picks these people that just are super realistic. Super, like, I couldn't picture anybody else in any of these roles, even the smaller ones.
Mhm.
So it's really a credit to he's probably one of the best directors right now out there, doing a very unique situation with his films.
And I genuinely feel like, because I've been following around, not in person, but on social media and stuff like that, Sean Baker for a little bit.
Why would you say that like that?
Sean, if you're listening to this, I apologize. Don't worry, your safety is still intact. Don't worry. But no, like I've been, because he's a huge movie buff. I genuinely think, and I think the best directors are also the biggest movie buffs out there. Like,
Absolutely.
or advocate that they're a huge movie buff and they actively partake in it outside of their own projects.
Yeah.
So I think like, it's actually funny because I did like right before it was announced that Red Rocket was premiering at cons, I got a movie poster. Sean collects a ton of cool, really cool movie posters. And I got a movie poster from my boyfriend, and it was vintage and it had some writing on it that I didn't understand. So I was like, the only person who I think might have connections or might be able to help me figure out what this means, if it's worth anything, might be him. And so I actually messaged him and he responded. He was like, "Oh, hey, yeah, send me the things and stuff." So first of all, cool dude. Second of all, I'm not besties with the dude, but and then after the next day, the cons thing came out, and I haven't heard from him since. So I understand you got busy, Sean, but thank you for trying to help out with the poster situation. But he's genuinely like a huge movie nerd. He is such a movie nerd. And I think that adds so much more to people because you can tell that this is someone who genuinely loves being behind the camera, who's also willing to do what they want to make without compromising their creative vision. I don't think like um Sean Baker and things like that, because if we compare to like the new age of like directors, right? So who do we have? We have Sean Baker, we have, especially within the A24 people, Sean
Hmm.
Baker, Robert Eggers, what's the director's name of Hereditary?
Ugh, I don't know. I
um
actually, oh, Ari Aster.
Ari Aster, things like that. And, there's definitely a few more people to be named and everything like that. But I think out of all of them, Sean is genuinely seems like the one who I don't know. I think because he does have an online presence and because I'm able to see a little bit of it, it is just it seems like he just genuinely loves this. You know, like he loves this movie. He wouldn't release a movie that is a that he doesn't agree with, you know, or that he doesn't feel like isn't perfect in his eyes. And I love that. And I really think that more directors should aim to be like Sean Baker, you know?
Oh, I agree. And his movies are very unique to him. And I really love when directors, like, for example, you can tell when you watch a Wes Anderson film, it's a Wes Anderson film. And I really
Yeah.
feel the same for this director. You can tell when you're watching a Sean Baker film, and it's a good thing. So,
100%. It's a great trademark. And also, I think with Sean Baker, the thing is, though, is that because his shtick is realism and portraying stories that kind of no one wants to talk about, that means that we can have so many more projects from him and they're all going to carry well. Like even
yeah.
Wes Anderson, I will say probably within 20 years, you know, if Wes Anderson keeps making movie after movie after movie, it might be a style, it might be a situation where we might get tired of because even though it is a distinct style, it's a distinct style repeated over and over and over again. So, you know, maybe, and that's possibly a reason why, like maybe French Dispatch didn't get as well reception as with Grand Budapest Hotel and the other films
Sure.
of Wes Anderson beforehand, you know? So Sean Baker really has a great playing field, essentially. He's
I,
able to
yeah.
deliver. You know, it's not like with Scorsese, where you and I think Scorsese should really keep to like Goodfellas and like, you know, things of like that type of nature, like the mafia, the dark movies and stuff, and maybe stay away from period pieces, you know?
um, I was gonna say something, and oh yes, one thing that I really admire about Sean Baker is he brings to light things that I don't think we talk about enough. With the Florida Project, it was about the poverty that
Yes.
Central Floridians face. Like a lot of people at Disney World, and then you have like people literally on the outskirts of Disney
Hmm.
living in motels suffering. And I think this movie does a really good job at talking about small town poverty too,
Hmm.
and also grooming. I think there's a lot of things. Now, like I said, I wasn't a fan of how graphic it was, but I think there's a lot of things that he does and he portrays that we don't like. Films in general do not speak about,
Yes.
and I think that is why he's important and will probably do well for the rest of his career. Because I would always want to see something I don't know about. I didn't know
Yeah.
about poverty in small towns and like essentially porn grooming. I don't know, and I literally saw it firsthand, and that's great.
Yeah, like and just to go back to like the conversation with Ari Aster and Robert Eggers versus someone like Sean Baker, you can kind of it's once again that predictability factor. You know, Sean Baker has this predictable yet not so predictable, and that's what makes it so intriguing. We all know that Robert Eggers is going to make he's making another movie and it's essentially like it's the Lighthouse 2.0 but in Sweden or you know something like that where it's very similar and then you know or similar to like The Witch and stuff like they all kind of like correlate, you know, they all kind of correlate all together, which is fine, but I'm saying that it's not as a good element of surprise as what someone like Sean Baker can do because he can literally take like oh yeah like the story of like a town in nowhere, you know, essentially a town that no one knows about an industry that no one knows about people who are usually forgotten, and make like a whole dynamic story about it.
Yeah, yeah. I really admire that about him.
And I'm not trying to diss Robert Eggers or Ari Aster.
No,
I'm
it's
just
just
saying
a
that's
different
what I
type of.
think.
It's a different type of filmmaking.
I do think that Sean Baker's more dynamic than both of them because they're kind of staying within
Yeah,
their own little shtick, and then you have Sean Baker who's literally made the playing field endless for himself.
I agree. I agree.
So yeah. Um, overall, I mean, is there anything other than Simon Rex? I think everyone else was fantastic. I think everyone else in this
Everybody
movie
in
was
that.
fantastic.
No, everybody from large world to small world was perfect.
Now, do you want to talk about the ending?
Sure.
So, the way this movie ends, spoiler again, is essentially you have Simon Rex or Mickey, Mickey or Mikey? It's
I think
Mikey, right?
Mikey Saver. Yeah.
Mikey Saber. So essentially, you have him all devoid of money. His wife ratted him out to the weed dealers that he was working with and everything, and ends up running nude in the street in the end to the song Bye Bye Bye. Gets some clothes and stuff like that. And then, oh yeah, it was a really graphic nude. It wasn't just like, oh,
Oh no,
nude
we
with like
saw
a
full
yeah,
frontal.
it was full, yes, very funny, but definitely like, oh dear lord, you know. But yeah, so then he goes back to the people who he worked with. Essentially, now at this point, he gets doesn't he get jumped too?
Yeah, so essentially, or in order to make money, he starts selling drugs with the person he sold drugs with in high school. We come to find out that his ex-wife kind of gets in cahoots with this drug dealer and
Yeah.
says, kind of makes the deal like, hey, if Mikey ever leaves you or leaves me, can you help me? And that's essentially what happened. He comes home, he's like, hey, I'm leaving, bye, and I'm gonna leave you stranded with no money. And the drug dealer's family comes and essentially like takes all of his money, takes his clothes, and kicks him out of the house. Rightfully so, by the way, rightfully so.
Yeah, and the reason why he's leaving is because he's going to go with Strawberry and take her to LA and then start his whole journey there, you know?
Yeah.
And he had like a decent amount of money to sit on, enough money to definitely get him and Strawberry to LA.
Oh, I don't think we mentioned why why he even went to this small town. Did we mention that?
No, we did not. Go ahead. Talk about it.
No, I don't remember. I'm asking you.
Oh, you're asking me. Sorry. I thought you were asking
I
if like
can't
we had
remember what
mentioned
it
it.
was. Maybe I
Oh,
did. I'm sorry if that was confusing. No.
I'm pretty sure it was because he got kicked out of the porn industry and he had no money because he couldn't make porn anymore.
Oh, that's right. He was. Okay, I know. I remember now. I totally forgot.
Yeah, so that was why, because he had to do the walk of shame back to his wife because he had nowhere to go. He had lost all his money and everything. And I believe it was because he was kicked out, kind of because he had performance issues.
That's right. That's
Because he
right.
does take what seems to be Viagra or Cialis throughout the entirety of the movie.
I totally forgot about
It's
that.
not said outright, but that's definitely what it alludes to. That, or he also maybe double crossed someone within LA and had to run away.
Yes, that's right. We don't really know. I've totally forgot because when we were talking about the end, I'm like, wait, how did he end back in Texas? Then I remembered. Yeah.
Yeah, and remember in the beginning, he says a lot of things like, oh, he was beaten up and everything like that. He had a black eye too. And this is where I think we don't know because we needed to be able to figure out, like, and kind of keep some good to his character. You know, kind of like, oh, wanting some type of happy ending for him because he starts out in the beginning, he kind of spews some stories, which most likely are all just lies or fabricated to fit his narrative and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Right.
So, you know, that's how he ends up in Texas. So, in the end, beaten, nude, barely any clothes, no money. He still decides, screw it. I'm gonna go to Strawberries and I'm gonna say, hey, let's go to LA. Let's get out of here. And I really thought how they did it was great because it switches in the end to Mikey's fantasy where we see that little, you know, we see her home, but it's not an average home anymore. It is a little pink dollhouse. And Strawberry comes out in a little bikini, little teeny bikini, and is just like dancing around and stuff like that. And, you know, he's just smiling and he's just, you know, he goes from like a very stagnant face to a smile and everything.
Yeah.
Savannah, what do you think that ending meant?
I think he's gonna stay in his delusion. I don't think he learned his lesson.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna keep trying to either like get this girl to LA or essentially keep on the same path he's going or find somebody else. I
Yeah.
think that's what we're meant to believe, that like he's not stopping, he did not learn his lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was also too like even though he's a narcissist, I think at that point he realized how low he was. He literally just had everything. Now he just got beaten. He was nude for a bit. He's got no money, no place to live, no place to go back and stuff. And I think that moment of vision was his own head telling him like but this is what you're working to. This is why you got to keep going and stuff like that. And this is why you have to do this, because he probably realizes, because his wife in the end of the movie, right before he ends up leaving and stuff, I think calls him like a loser and stuff. It was a really great scene because they do like a great zoom in on her face and stuff like
What was
that.
it? What did she call him? It was like a suitcase pimp?
Yeah, suitcase pimp. So he really and was like, "What did you say?" And then they do like a super zoom on like her lips and everything, mouthing it out and stuff. It was so great. But I think it was just a kind of imaginary portrayal of how a narcissist inflates themselves even when they look downright like an idiot.
Yeah.
How they're able to spin the situation to make them look like a god. And in that moment, in the end, also without showing, whether or not Strawberry does go with him, whether or not he succeeds or not succeeds and stuff, which I also think was good. Just kind of showing like, in the end, even with nothing, he will always think of himself as a god and think of himself as something bigger than what he really is.
Yes. Yeah.
So I love the ending. I'm always a big fan of, kind of ambiguous endings where you can kind of interpret them to your own. So I'm really happy Sean Baker went with that notion for the ending. I really enjoyed it.
I agree. I liked it. The ending was good.
So overall, what is your rating for Red Rocket, and would you own it on DVD?
So I'm gonna give it an 8.8. Specifically because one, I'm not a fan of the graphic nudity in general. Nothing against
Mhm.
the movie. I just don't really want to see it. A lot of it, Also, the rewatchability is very low. I don't think I want to see this movie too often, and I also can't show it. I think you'd be the only person that would want to watch it with me again.
Yeah,
So for that reason, I wouldn't own it on DVD just because I don't actually see myself watching it again, maybe in another year or two, possibly. Um, but 8.8 just for me is still a great movie, still a great watch. Nothing against the film in any way. I think Sean Baker really did a great job, and the actors in it deserve all of the credit for sure.
100%. Would you own it on DVD?
Probably not. I just don't see myself playing it, not even once a year, to be honest.
That's fair. That's
I
fair.
just, I don't see myself. And I think that's what the Florida Project kind of has over it for me. I
Mhm.
love the Florida Project. I'll watch it more than once a year. This
Yes.
movie, because of the content in it, it would be hard for me to like sit down and like just pop it in.
That's fair. That's
So
totally fair.
nothing against the movie. I just don't see myself. What about you?
I'd probably give it like a 9.1. I
Oh,
thoroughly enjoyed it. I really and you know me, I tend to gravitate towards the more darker films. And this,
no.
in Sean Baker's, I think I've only seen, the only other one that I've seen was Florida Project. I still have yet to see Tangerine. But I do think that this was darker compared to Florida Project, and it does appeal to me more. I just like darker films. I like films that go there,
Sure.
I like films that are daring, and I do think that this film was extremely daring, extremely well made. So I would give it a 9.1. Um, Rewatchability, I agree. However, I do really want to see this again when it is out available on DVD. So that would be the reason why I would buy it. If they make this into a Criterion or something, hell yeah, I'm buying it. But just for like a regular like DVD, just to see it again once it's available and stuff like that before it hits streaming, I'd probably buy it.
Okay. There is another movie we should probably watch by him that I've been interested in seeing for a while. Have you ever heard of A Starlet?
No, I have not heard of Starlet.
It's the movie that came out before Tangerine.
Oh,
Really, really early his early work, I think like 2013, 2014, something around there. I think it's one of his first films if I'm getting that right. I don't know. But it would be the only one I haven't seen. So I would really like to see it.
gotcha. Yeah, maybe we'll do because we've talked about Florida Project, but we haven't talked about Tangerine. So maybe we'll do like a little double feature with
Okay.
those two.
We can do that.
Okay, perfect. And then now, Savannah, can you introduce the next movie to us?
Absolutely. Okay. Nightmare Alley isn't about an ambitious carny with a talent for manipulating people with a few well chosen words, hookups with a female psychiatrist who is even more dangerous than he is. It stars Bradley Cooper, Kate Blanchett, Toni Collette, William Dafoe, Rooney Mara, and Richard Jenkins, and it's directed by Guillermo del Toro. What did you think, Steph? We saw this one together too.
So I will say, and I don't want to hear it, but I'm not a Guillermo del Toro biggie. I'm not a big fan of him. Like
I am not
I
either. I
I
am not
think
either.
what he does is good, but I look at that, I'm like, cool, not for me. Just because I keep in mind, I think the costumes and the set designs and everything like that are amazing, but his stories don't woo me over. You know what I mean? Like it's just not something that I gravitate towards. So there is that. Like,
No,
let me tell you
I
right now. Like it's also keep in mind I like my opinion about him kind of changed. Not even during The Shape of Water. It was when he wrote Pacific Rim, and I was like, "What are you doing, dog?" Like,
I am not a big fan either. I did not care for The Shape of Water. Everybody talks about Pan's Labyrinth. I didn't actually care for Pan's Labyrinth. I thought it was a weird story. Didn't like
mhm.
it. Um, but when I saw the plot for this movie, I was really excited because I really like films set in like the 40s, and it's also like carnival themed. I feel like carnival themed is kind of nobody does it anymore. I feel like that was a really 40s, 30s kind of trend where we would be like, oh, movies that take place in a carnival. So I thought that was really different.
Yes.
Do you want to know a crazy fact about this film that I just read on IMDb?
What?
So Leonardo DiCaprio was supposed to play the lead, but
Oh.
he turned it down for Licorice Pizza.
Sorry.
He then dropped
I
out
can't say
of
anything. I haven't seen the movie. Scratch that. I can't say anything.
no,
I
he
just
then dropped out of Licorice Pizza, and then Bradley Cooper ended up taking both roles.
thank God. I'm sorry. I think I would have struggled if I had seen like just look. I'm not going to judge Licorice Pizza too harshly. I have some opinions about it. Have I seen the movie yet? No. So I'm not going to talk about my opinions in detail. All I'm just going to say is I'm glad Leo wasn't in it. That's it.
Yeah, I think he would have faced him back. I mean, I don't know how much Bradley Cooper is facing back last
But it
because
also kind of makes sense, Savannah, why Leo would be in it. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
I was did I make
It's
that
crazy.
joke with you or Paul? I made a joke because I just turned 24 and I'm like, I got one more Leo year. One more.
Dang. Dang, you got one more. That's
Leo, come on,
crazy.
man. Come on, settle down. Getting too old for this.
But back to Nightmare Alley, so that way we don't have the film bros attack us for mentioning licorice pizza with and
We didn't
having
say
some.
nothing.
at-
We didn't say
We
anything.
we will maybe we will talk about it. I will see it when it becomes available on streaming and stuff like that. I
Agreed.
will go and see it then. But for now, I'm solely just going to say that I'm not a fan just because I know that the actors in it in real life have the age difference. I don't have to watch the movie to know that I don't like that because it's a real life fact. So that's just my opinion. It might be like, well, you just watch Red Rocket. It's different, and we'll talk about it when we get there. Okay. Back to Nightmare Alley. So Nightmare Alley,
What'd you
yeah,
think?
I'm not a big Guillermo del Toro fan. So when I watched this, I was like, I don't know. I'm not a del Toro fan. I love this movie. I genuinely love this movie. Like you too. I love like these kind of older 40 set type of stuff, and I really loved how this movie kind of felt like a nod to so many other movies from that time, like
Yes.
Double Indemnity, Ministry of Fear, things like that. And there was even this video game that I used to play a lot, and it had one episode and it was supposed to have five, and it was only like two episodes were made, and it never continued because the company shut down. But it was a 1940s element movie like this base movie where it was called Blues and Bullets, and literally like it also they had a little carnival little type of thingy to it too, so it reminded me of that. I was like, oh, Blues and Bullets, RIP. But
It had
this
a
movie was
very,
great.
yeah, I was very impressed on how they made it feel like a 1940s movie, but yet very modern. Like the
Oh, the
story
set
felt,
design here was great.
but also the story, they don't really make films with that kind of plot anymore.
Well,
So
I also think it's because it is based on the novel that was originally made in this time.
yes, that's true.
So I think that also adds to a little, little sneaky element to it. Although I don't know, I haven't. It was also originally like a 1939 film, I believe it was.
Mm.
So I don't know how much it differentiates from, that movie back then to this one now. So I'm just going to talk about it now. It does do a great job in giving that 40s, 50s movie feel, that old Hollywood feel, especially the dark noir Hollywood of that time too.
Yes. Noir for sure.
So, and also like, I feel like with movies like these, when you have big boy actors like Bradley Cooper, Kate Blanchett, Toni Collette, William Dafoe, Rooney Mara, Ron Perlman, all these well-known names in Hollywood. I think there's like 4 Oscar winners within this, movie. When you have that many people, I will say, me personally, I start getting nervous
Yeah.
because a lot of the times movies with these big names tend to be a little bit subpar. They just tend to be the blockbuster rather than a solid movie.
Yeah.
However, that's not the case for this movie. I think this movie is solid. I genuinely liked it. It definitely is within my top 5 of 2021 as well. Probably in the top 3. I got to think of my movie list, but it would probably be very close to Red Rocket.
Yeah.
But it was a great movie. What are your thoughts on it without spoiling?
This is my favorite movie of the year.
Oh, okay.
It definitely was the best experience in a theater I've had in a long time. And it was one of, I love a movie with a good little twist. No spoilers, but I think they did everything very well. For a 2-hour and 30-minute movie, it did go by pretty well. The pacing was great, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Um, I Kate Blanchett is my favorite actress. So I was happy to see her in something because she usually, lately, I feel like she's been low on the radar. She did stupendous. Rooney
Yes.
Mara, I think all the female leads in this movie were fantastic. Bradley Cooper was very good as well. I was just happy to see like I said, they don't make movies with this plot, these kind of plots anymore.
Mhm.
Is very rare. So I was very happy to see that it all worked out. And I love a good dark thriller. So, and it was also very, like I said, I like the carnival themes a lot. I don't think we see a lot of it. The last time I saw a carnival theme was American Horror Story.
Yeah, and that's like the only one people are like, "Oh, but there is carnival themes all the time. It's American Horror Story." That's only one thing. One thing.
They
It does
stopped
not
doing
count.
that.
One clown does not count as a carnival.
And I think it's because of the clown phenomenon that they stopped doing it. Because I
Yes.
think the clowns got a lot of the attention. And so now when you think of a carnival, you do think of clowns. But I think this movie did a good job of skirting that. There was no clowns at all, which I appreciated because we don't need to see another clown for a very long time.
Yes. And now let's get into some spoiler bits and stuff. Let's talk about the acting. Honestly, Bradley Cooper's best.
Yes.
Honestly.
Yes, absolutely.
I say that knowing, like, yes, I have seen Silver Linings Playbook. I thought he was great in that. Yes, I have seen was it in the
Stars Born.
Thank you. Wasn't a fan of him in that. But I've seen a lot of his stuff, and I will say I do think this was his best, especially in the end of the movie. I really loved his character, how his character really transforms, and he really sold it. He really sold the whole transformation of it all,
I agree. He did better than, not to say I don't think he's a great actor, because I do. I've been very impressed by some of his performances.
You want to know what I think also is a great performance by him that no one wants to talk about, but it really is a solid performance?
What?
Bro, him as Rocket in Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the best voice acting. I'm serious, Savanna. Do not judge me. I genuinely like him as a voice actor, and I think that was.
No, I just wasn't expecting that. I don't know.
I know. That's why I said like no one gives credit for him for that, and I think he's a fantastic voice actor too.
Yeah, sure.
So I think also like, and just looking back at like Silver Linings Playbook, I would think is good too. Yeah, he's good in like The Hangover and stuff like that, but I wouldn't consider them like his best performance or anything. And this is the one where I'm like, oh, okay, like this is like, oh, we got Bradley Cooper Oscar winner here on set, you know?
I was genuinely like, because I for a long time he was mostly a comedic actor, correct?
Yes.
So it really does show his range a lot. I think he can be a really great character performer. Like
Hmm.
I think he deserves some roles now for sure, and more of serious, complex. Because this character is very interesting because it's a very suave yet very another evil character we're dealing with essentially. But he does a really good job at kind of suppressing the evil. I think it's very impressive when a character can play suave but subtly something else.
Yeah, and also we see this great transformation in him where he becomes in the beginning he is someone who is desperate looking for a job, and he genuinely falls in love with Mara's character Molly, and he's genuinely into, you know, building her up and, you know, wanting to see her reach fame and stuff like that. And I think it's all genuine, and then a few years later when they settle into their married life and everything, it's all about him. It's all about him. She's feeling, you know, alone and stuff like that, and then how it even alters from like, okay, there's a little bit of a small issue here, and then the minute Dr. Lilith Ritter is introduced, Kate Blanchett, his whole life gets turned upside down. And I really loved how he was able to portray that so well, so the complexity and the growth of his character.
Absolutely. Just the downfall of this cynical, crazy, and even in the beginning, I think you missed the beginning of the film. It's just very interesting how we're giving clues.
Hmm.
I think to know like, hey, this guy's no good. But in the beginning, I was like, this is great. Like the first 20
Yeah,
minutes,
I think,
this guy's pretty cool, and then it
was
just
I trying to smuggle sushi in the movie theater? Maybe that's why. No, no, no. What did I get? I got popcorn. I got popcorn. That wasn't the sushi smuggling.
stop. I forgot
No,
about
wait, we had
it.
sushi before. Sorry. I thought I had the idea that I was gonna smuggle in sushi, but we never ended up doing it. Okay, no, that was just popcorn. I just went to
No,
go
we,
get
we ate
popcorn.
before. We ate before.
Gotcha, gotcha. But yeah, so um what were you saying? Sorry.
No, I think that he can be a great character performer for sure. I really liked Rooney Mara in this as well. What did you think about her?
I thought she was really good too. I really liked and I also don't have a lot of experience watching her movies, I will say. I know I'm trying to think what else.
She's
I
best known for the girl in with the dragon tattoo.
Yeah, I think I've only really seen her in the movie Her. So that's really like the only thing that I can go based off like her performance and everything with it in there. But overall in this movie, I thought she was good. I think that her character was well written and was daring, but also made sense for the times, if that made sense. You know what I mean? Like and I'm not trying to sound like a jerk here or anything like that, but I think her character was really well balanced and really well written for a female of the 1940s and 50s.
No, I actually agree. I think they gave her some depth, which I appreciated because it would have been really easy to make her two dimensional.
Yes.
But they kind of gave her like a little backstory, and they gave her like she was really the conscience of the film. She was
Yes.
really the moral guide of it, which I appreciated without it being too. Like I said, in those movies, women were really used as like plot devices, and it
Yes.
didn't feel like that.
Or love interests, or just, you know, some type of sex appeal or something like that, or
No,
just
yeah.
trying to get like a scantily clad woman on the cover or anything like that. So I thought I liked how they gave her dimension. I will say, aside from Kate Blanchett, all the other big people in this, they only have a little bit of window of time. Like William Defoe really didn't have a whole lot of time in the movie, but his time in the movie was great. Tony
Agreed.
Collette as well, not as much compared to Bradley Cooper, Rooney Mara, and Kate Blanchett, but her time was great as well. Like all of the actors did, like especially for the times too. I feel like when doing a period piece like this, it's very easy to fall into the trap of a lot of actors just focusing way too hard on trying to nail that transatlantic accent, and it just ends up sounding like so goofy, you know, where it doesn't even sound real.
Especially with women. I
Yes.
think for to be fair, that accent's very hard to do. If you're not like specifically trained with to do that accent, it's very difficult.
Yes.
But
And I also like how you could tell that some actors like Holt McConnelly, Mary Steenburgen, and a few other people didn't do the accent. They just didn't. And I thought that was good because I would rather just them do their normal, voice and do like a 1940s and 50s type of dialect or type of
yeah,
flow than, them just put on an atrocious accent that I don't even want to listen to.
the women always sound very cartoonish.
Yes.
You know what
Even
I
when you
mean?
watch those movies back then, the men just kind of sound like they're talking with a little bit of an English twang, where the women, the pitches that they have to go up and down, like, I ain't never had a scene. It just goes up and down like that. It's really hard to do. It's
Yeah,
also not a real accent, too. So that even makes it harder because you don't hear people day to day talk like that.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
think
I
maybe the
agree.
only person to have those was Bradley Cooper and Kate Blanchett. Kate Blanchett is also, isn't she English?
Ah, I don't
So
know. I should know
she
that. She's my favorite actress right
she's
now.
Australian. She's
Yeah,
Australian.
she
So
is
you can
Australian.
kind of add a little bit of her own Australian twang to it. And it's just like, okay, we're there. Transatlantic accent. So I really like how they all acted. I thought they all did a great job. Um and I really like I think the heart of this movie is the plot. The heart of this movie is the story, the deceit, the drama, and I thought it was great.
I think it has a really good message to it too, surprisingly, which I wasn't expecting.
Guillermo and morals?
Yeah.
Who would have thought after the whole fish thing? I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm
I
joking.
hate that movie. It's okay. I have a gripe
I
with
haven't
it.
seen it. I haven't seen it. I've heard.
I think it's weird. Look, I'm not saying it wasn't creative. I'm not saying it like the people didn't do a good job. It looked great. Don't like it. I think it's weird.
To each their own. I didn't see it. I just kind of was like, do I want to see that one dude from Hellboy in a movie on his own? No thanks.
Dude, you know what I was because I saw it maybe like during the pandemic, like when it first started. All I could think of, it's really funny when I was watching the movie, I was like, Zach would be really uncomfortable with this.
Oh
That's who I
yes,
thought of. I'm like,
yes,
Zach, if Zach saw this, he would be wildly uncomfortable. That's
yeah.
really funny. I just remembered that's what I thought.
Yeah, my for those who may not know, my boyfriend kind of has like low tolerances to certain movies, and that's totally fine. Like I put on Tusk for him. The minute Justin Long was in a wheelchair, he was like, "Nope, turn it off. You can turn it off. I'm done. I'm done." Like he knows the type of movies he likes,
That's fair
and
though.
yeah, of course, everyone's able to do that, but I could definitely see him going like, "Nope, I don't like that fish. Turn it off."
I didn't like the fish. I didn't like how it looked. It was too much. It was, and then like it had like I don't know. I forgot if it was a love scene, but there was an intimate scene in the movie with the fish.
Yeah, I
Nobody
had
needed
heard
to
about
see
that.
it. I don't know why they made what was her name, Sally? I forget the actress name. I think her name is Sally.
Hmm.
That poor
I think
woman.
so. Yeah, it didn't appeal to me because isn't like the whole premise of it is like human falls in love with fishman?
Yeah. Not for me. I also just don't like like Guillermo del Toro's like way of horror because a lot of it has to do with animals. In Pan's
Yeah.
Labyrinth, I had to turn it off because there's a scene with like frogs,
Oh, well that's understandable for you.
but it was like grotesque.
Gotcha.
So like I
Okay.
don't like grotesque
Like
animal
I think
horror.
his
Like
imagery is incredible, but I don't think sometimes plot is always strong enough. Especially when you have like such unique characters, like then your plot has to be like, in my opinion, it has to be able to be strong enough to carry the reasons like why we're seeing all these people. You know what I mean? Why we're seeing all these characters and stuff like that.
I think
You
it's
know?
distracting. in Pan's Labyrinth, there's this goat man, and Pan's Labyrinth is in Spanish. But I thought it was so funny because the whole time it's just this goat man with a very going "¿Qué pasó?" and it's just
I
very,
can't.
it's very distracting from the plot. I was like, I don't want to see him and everything. So I agree with you. I think if you're gonna have these wacky characters, you gotta have a stellar plot with some stellar dialogue because otherwise, I don't know. I don't think it works out.
Yeah, like it's just it. Even though like the characters are cool enough to like watch and everything, I need a strong plot or like a plot going somewhere to be able to like still be a really capture me the cool and like I said, I really appreciate the artwork of it all, but it's for me just not enough sometimes to woo me over. But this one we had none of those types of characters,
Yeah, thank
and
God.
it was really great. Like I genuinely think that Guillermo del Toro is a better director than he's a better writer.
Sure, sure.
Like, I really like and I think that makes sense why I like his imagery and why I like his imagination more so than, the dialogue or the things, well, except in this movie, of course. But overall, like, I think it's great. I really would love to see more normal-ish stuff from Guillermo del Toro. That's
I would
not
too.
Pacific Rim. That is not Pacific
I
Rim.
feel like he found his like this is definitely it.
I
I
would love to see like an occasional noir film from him. Like after watching this, I wouldn't mind if he wanted to go back and, because this is technically a remake. If you want to go back and remake another like 40s and 50s movies from the time and stuff like that, I'd be fine with it. I think he could do a great job.
oh, I'd be down. I would love to see it cuz like really it was even better than I thought it would be. That's the
Yes.
truth. I really enjoyed the plot and I think that it had a good twist. I think that the sequences were good. It was well paced for a noir film. Enjoyed it.
hmm Yeah, I think honestly, what would be a really cool movie to see from him would be something like one of my favorites is A Kiss Before Dying. I've
Mm,
told you about it. I've read the book about it. I loved A Kiss Before Dying by Ira Levine, and I watched the book too, or watched the movie too. And I think he would be really good at that because it's dark, like
right.
this, or even, dude. I feel like what was the one horror movie that we reviewed from the '60s?
Oh, yeah.
He would,
Peeping Tom.
yes, he could do that really well.
I would love to see a remake of Peeping Tom.
He
Would
could do
love
that
it.
really well. Like, because I think, like, obviously there are some movies that are just untouchable. Like, you shouldn't remake them because they're great. But I
Yeah.
think something like Peeping Tom, where it was a great backbone, but not the best execution, and also not the best time for a movie like that to be released. I think
Yeah.
he could do Peeping Tom excellently.
Yeah, I very much agree.
But yeah, so I hope to see more from Guillermo del Toro going outside of the realm of his own horror. I would love to see him dive into, more period pieces essentially.
Please. No more fish. No more goats. None of it.
So overall, what are your thoughts on Nightmare Alley? The name escaped me. Sorry, I'm tired.
I'm going to give it a sacred 10 out of 10.
Whoa.
I
Explain.
enjoyed it that much. I'm not saying this is a flawless movie, but I am saying I had great experience. This was the best movie I saw all year. I also feel like this is a movie that I can show anybody.
Yes.
Everybody likes mysteries. The movie isn't overly violent. The movie isn't overly graphic with any of its material. Um, Believe it or not, there's not a lot of cursing in this movie too, which is something I realized. I'm like, I really could show this to
Well, yeah,
anybody.
because it's the 1940s. What are they gonna say? Yes, scallywag. You know?
I really think that like the subject material is for everybody. And I think when you're making a movie like this, that's not something you can always say.
Yeah, and we
So
have a lot of these types of movies coming out, but they're not stepping up to the plate like this did. Like we have a lot of Agatha Christie type movies coming out because I think they're now. Is it because they're royalty free?
Maybe.
Because I think she was an older author, and she wrote those a while ago, like Murder on the Orient Express and things like that. But yeah, they're like making those, and they're not like living up. They're
Well,
not living
it's
up to
not
what they
hitting
could be,
right.
you know?
It's not hitting right. Yeah. Well, I was gonna say something else too, but I really think that this is probably one of the best films of the year, and I think that he did a fantastic job with this kind of story. Um, Pacing
And
was
it was
wonderful.
considered by the American Film Institute to be the movie of the year.
Yeah. Um,
But of course,
Unfortunately,
Golden Globes don't want to show love to the good stuff. Even Red Rocket didn't get any nominations for the Golden Globes
yeah,
either.
because they were too busy nominating Licorice Pizza. But
It's true.
anyway, um, I would definitely own this on DVD. I forgot there was something else I want to say about it, but I can't remember. Um, it was genuinely one of the best experience I had in theater. I'm very disappointed. It didn't do super great at the box office, but that's kind of the story of the year with a lot of films.
Yeah.
But if you guys can definitely maybe buy it on Blu-ray, support it because I think it deserves a lot of attention. More attention than it got for opening weekend.
Oh, 100%. I feel like you could literally like it's got such a great watchability and rewatchability factor. So, I think if anything, if Red Rocket does not sound like the movie for you, I can assure you that this movie will be.
Yeah.
And obviously you would own it on DVD, correct?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay, I think for me, if I'm going to rate it, so I gave 9.1 to Red Rocket. But Red Rocket, I do feel like the rewatchability would probably put it at like, it's weird. I will still think Red Rocket is my favorite, but because
Oh
of that
yeah.
watchability factor, I will give it a higher score. I would probably give it like a 9.3, just because I think it's overall, like, I really love the movie and stuff like that. It's probably like my second favorite movie of the year. I just like how daring Red Rocket was. But I do think that this
That's fair.
overall, for anyone, for the masses, for any age and stuff, this is overall a very well done, enjoyable movie for most people. So that would definitely put it up to, yeah, 9.3, I'd say.
Yeah. Still see both films if you're
Yeah, still see
interested.
both films, but definitely if you don't think Red Rocket's for you, then go see Nightmare Alley. I believe by the time that this podcast comes out, both of them will still probably be available in theater.
Yeah. Well, here's what I say. Watch Red Rocket by yourself and Nightmare Alley
With the group,
with friends.
with some friends.
That's how you're gonna do it. I
Smuggle some sushi into the theater. Have a good old time. But
keep in
okay,
mind, wait,
so
you're
what?
not like you're smuggling good sushi. We didn't like stop at a gas station. There is a sushi place very near the movie theater we go to. I feel like
Yeah,
we need
it's
to
huge.
clarify
And then
that.
also, let me also clarify one thing. I do have celiac disease, so candy is not my friend in the movie theater. So I'm really just like
You
limited
get
to
a pass.
popcorn.
Until they start adding more celiac friendly snacks, this is what you have to do.
Bro, it makes me so upset that my favorite movie theater, they sell milkshakes because it's a dine-in movie theater, but they come automatically with malt. Who wants a malted milkshake? It's 2022. Who the hell wants a malted milkshake? I
Garbage.
can't.
Garbage.
I can't. And I'm like, can't you separate it? They're like, no, it comes like that. I can't. Okay. I'll take it up to the movie theater with my with
Just
my
start
own issues.
emailing the company. Just be like, I can't believe you.
Bro, can you just separate it? You could make more money if you charged it separately. Like how a Steak and Shake does. You can get it malted or not, I think. I don't know. I can't have their milkshakes either.
We should just send it from the Purple Noon email.
I can't. I really
This is a
can't.
problem we have, and you have to fix
And
it.
now I have to smuggle in sushi. Sucks, man. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. As always, shout out to Sensei David, Homeboy James, and Danny Boy. And if you're like,
Woo!
oh, those people sound cool, how do I get mentioned at the end of every episode? Well, you just go to our Patreon. We got a little dollar little thing that we're doing. All of it goes to maintaining websites, helping us replace equipment when needed and stuff like that. So check down below, especially if you're on YouTube. All links will be listed below. If not, you can always just search up Purple Nuna Podcast Patreon. Also, other links too, like, our TikToks and our Instagrams and our Letterboxd are all listed down below. I have to edit our Letterboxd because it's been like 3 months since I've updated it. I'm
It's
sorry,
cool.
guys.
You'll
But
get sick.
well, yeah, you had a myriad of issues. And then I'll probably be posting on TikTok again. I got some cool vinyls. I kind of want to show them off on TikTok. So check out all of our socials and everything. And next time, we got a big boy of an episode coming up. Let me double check the facts real quick. Next time we have
Also, we're gonna hit a 1.5 years of Purple Noon soon. Just throwing that out there. 1.5 years.
best year and a half of my life. Next time you will hear us, we will actually not just be reviewing part 1, not just part 2, not just part 3, but all 3 Godfather flicks. Savanna, that tempo is not to pull a whiplash right now, but that's not the tempo. That was sped up like crazy.
Well, we don't have time to do the whole thing.
Fair. Sorry.
It has to be. We have to make it snappy.
By the way, I love Nino Rota, the composer of The Godfather, but that was really kind of crappy of him to just recycle over the soundtrack that he used for Rocco and his brothers into The Godfather and did not think anyone would notice. I'd noticed Nino. Anyways, you guys have a good one.
And something-year-old girl from Florida cracks it.
I know Nino's dead, so he can't fight me, but I'll see you in heaven, bro. Fisticuffs. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. And next time it'll be all 3 Godfathers, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.